Hey guys, this is Max and welcome to another episode of Analog Insights. In today's episode, I'd like to review one of my favorite portrait lenses, which is the Minolta MC Rokkor-PF 85mm f1.7 lens. It is a legendary portrait lens that was first introduced in 1970 with an all-metal hill and valley design and later updated in 1973 with the rubberized focusing ring design that you can also see here in my version. The lens is famous for its great bokeh and the softness that it produces, especially when shot completely wide open. Interestingly, once you stop it down to f2.8 or f4, it's really a great lens with great resolution, contrast and sharpness, even in the corners. So it's really a versatile lens, and I will talk about that a bit more in a second when we actually look at some images that I've taken with it. Regarding the specs of the lens, it weighs 455 grams, has 6 aperture blades and comes with 6 lenses in 5 different groups, and the minimum focusing distance is 1 meter. The mount, of course, is the Minolta SR mount, which is also sometimes called MC or MD mount, so it's easy to adapt this lens to a digital camera as well. As common for this channel, I of course shot all the images that I will show you in a minute on film. And where necessary and possible, I will also mention the film that I used. So without further ado, let's head over to my desk and take a look at some of the images taken with this lens. So I've tested this lens extensively over the last couple of months, and here I just want to share some of the portraits that I've took, starting with these of Isabel. And here you can already see this one was shot at f2.8, the kind of beautiful bokeh and transition that you get from the in-focus area, in this case her eye, to for instance her ear on the right side, and how smooth and soft the transition actually is. And at the same time you get quite some resolution, sharpness and quality in the sharp area. This one was shot on Ilford FP4, if you're interested in that. So quite beautiful. And as is common for these 1970s lenses, you can already see that here you get quite some 3D pop. So the separation between the background and the foreground and how her facial features are coming towards you are quite impressive. Just another example of this here. I particularly like how, if you look at her hair on her forehead, how it really transitions smoothly in such a soft and nice way at f2.8 here. This one is slightly out of focus, but nevertheless I liked it, and you can see beautifully in the in-focus areas, like the lips, and I think to some extent also the her eyelashes, how much detail is recorded in these areas. And how little everywhere else. So ideal portrait lens in this particular case, you can see that beautifully. Again, one more here. I was particularly struck by the amount of detail I get from the fabric of her shirt or top, and also of course strengthened by this watery, the water in the background here. Really strong and clear contrasts, and there's some degree of glow that you can still feel, so some spherical aberrations around the hard edges between black and white here, but overall this is pretty good. And I should mention that when shot wide open, the lens has a strong tendency for spherical aberrations, which of course is also what makes up the softness, but once you stop down to f2.8 or f4, you get beautiful creamy bokeh, and you significantly reduce the spherical aberrations. Just a couple more examples in that direction here. Yeah. Again, quite some 3D pop and beautiful bokeh if you look at her shoulders and the background here. I really like this lens and the look it creates. Some completely different images because I wanted to show you some color as well. This one was taken in February. So the other ones here that I showed earlier in I think early August or late July. And this one here was in February when it was still pretty cold. So there was actually snow on the ground when we took these images. So we really had to rush, Linda and I here, the model, in order to ensure that her cheeks would not turn red or her nose. And these were shot on Fuji Natura 1600. And here, just to give you an indication of how it can look in terms of background and foreground separation for these kinds of portraits, more the classic composition. Then a little bit closer again, quite some details here again in her eyes. And here you get an idea of the kind of bokeh that you get if shot again at f2.8, so not completely wide open. And here on the next one, here you get the messy bokeh in the background. I think this one was shot completely wide open. And here you can see that the lens has trouble recording the details of the tree and the stone and things like that in an appropriate fashion, and it becomes a little bit messy. Instead of creamy and interesting, especially since these areas here are towards the edges of the frame. In the middle of the frame it's still fine and good. Two more portraits I just wanted to share from a Brazilian model. This is Alexa, also during the winter time. That's why she's wearing a coat here and making funny faces, because she was on the brink of being cold. What I really wanted to show you here is what I found interesting is the kind of detail that you can still record on the edges of the frame. Again, you can already see here by looking at her eye and then at her ear. This was also shot quite wide open, I think f4. And the kinds of details that you get at the upper part of her head, the little hairs here, these are quite detailed, especially since this is just an Agfa APX film. In this particular case, you get really beautiful details. Besides these portraits, I wanted to show you some indoor shots as well. And I recently visited the Glyptothek here in Munich together with my girlfriend, shooting some Ilford Delta 100. And here this one was taken at f1.7, particularly to show you how soft it is when shot wide open and at close focusing distance. So I think this was the closest I could get with a 1 meter focusing distance. And you can already feel here in this image the amount of spherical aberrations. And this of course is black and white film, but if you would shoot the same image on a digital camera, you would probably see quite some aberrations here as well. Nevertheless, I think with such a calm background, you still get a nice and smooth bokeh. Here are some other images. This one was stopped down, I think, to f4. Rather contrasty, of course, also due to the light, and a lot of details recorded here in the face of this figure. I really like this image and the kind of mood that you can create with this portrait lens. Here, kind of a smooth transition again across the belly of this figure. Here, in order to show you how it would look like to focus to infinity, or almost infinity, I think, in this case. And again, still you get quite some nice separation between the actual background and this figure here in the foreground, despite the fact that I'm a couple of meters away. So I would say at least 7 meters. So I really like this image and the kind of atmosphere that you get. Interestingly, this looks like vignetting here, but it's not. This lens is not very prone to vignetting, only if you shoot it wide open. But once you stop down, it's pretty good already. Here, again, I think either wide open or f2.8 to show you the difference between focusing on his eyes and his face versus the child that he's holding in his hand. Again, quite some nice separation between foreground, background, and a 3D pop effect. Similar use case here, and most importantly, these little columns here that I also shot wide open just to show you the kinds of spherical aberrations, again, that glow, really soft glow that you get, and where your eye really takes some time to find the sharp spot. And of course, if it's located towards the center of the image, you do record quite some details, but overall, when shot wide open, you don't get a lot of contrast here. This image I really like. This one was stopped down at least to f4, I think. So you do get a pretty clearly visible focal plane, so to speak. And what I didn't do here is, of course, go towards the sweet spot. If you want to do landscape photography, it makes sense to use this lens at f5.6 or even f8. Then it's really perfect. Once you go down to f11, you get some aberrations again, which is interesting. So you should really, for portraits, remain in that spot between f2.8 and f4. And for other shots where you want to record a lot of details, go towards f5.6 or f8. And one last one, kind of the entry hall from the side. I just love the look of this old wood here. The rounded edges of that entry area, and the kind of glowy light that was produced thanks to the summer sun outside and us on the inside here. Two more shots, or one particular one taken in my kitchen. And this is not about the coffee that is featured here, but about the difference of the small font on the lower part of the upper label that says sweet milk chocolate and full body, that is rather out of focus here, versus almost on the very same plane, the Man vs. Machine logo itself and the font underneath. So this one was shot at f1.7 again, and here you can already see on the left that the bokeh is a little bit messy. It's not that beautiful as it could be. The amount of details recorded is limited, and you already get that sense of glow and spherical aberrations around the edges of the fonts, or the typography here that says Man vs. Machine. Especially since this is, of course, a black and white contrast, it's strengthened by that. And here just my notebook, and stop down a little bit to show you how beautiful and contrasty this lens can also be, and the kind of atmosphere it can just create in a simple scene like this. I was really impressed by that. And again, recording all the details and reflections in the Fuji logo on the pen in the image center, or roughly the center of the image. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this little best of the last couple of months. So I hope you enjoyed this review of this legendary Minolta portrait lens. If you did, please remember to like this video and maybe even share it with your friends. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. Jules, Greg and I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you soon. Bye.